Shadow of humanity. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Thrix delivered the news. 57 representatives from across the known universe collectively held their breath. Some species didn't even breathe air, but the metaphor applied universally. The Viridian Horde has breached the Arcturus defensive line, Thrix announced, her crystalline form reflecting the holographic display showing the enemy's progress. 3 more systems have fallen in the past cycle. Their main battle fleet will reach the Nexus hub within 7 rotations. The chamber erupted in panicked voices. The Nexus hub was the central trade and transportation nexus for the Galactic Confederacy, home to trillions of citizens from hundreds of species. If it fell, the Viridians would gain direct access to the heart of Confederate space. Supreme Commander Corvin, a massive 8-limbed Retharian, slammed 2 of his appendages on the council table. We must gather every available ship. Every member world must contribute to the defense fleet. Arguments broke out as representatives debated evacuation versus defense, resources versus refugees, retreat versus resistance. The noise grew until Admiral Silura silenced the room with a single gesture. The old Medusan warrior's tentacled mane undulated slowly around her slender face. When she spoke, everyone listened. "There is another option," she said, her voice translated into the standard trade language. "We could ask the humans for help." The silence deepened into something almost physical. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. "Surely you're not suggesting..." High Counselor Zarin's words trailed off, unable to finish the thought. "I am," Silura confirmed. "We could ask the humans to send the Harbinger." The name hung in the air like a curse. The younger delegates looked confused. But the veterans, those old enough to remember the Cygnus incident 15 cycles ago, exchanged knowing glances. Ambassador Thrix turned to face Silura. "Most of us have only heard stories, Admiral. Some think they're just exaggerations meant to elevate humanity's standing." "I was there," Silura said firmly, her eyes sweeping the room. "At Cygnus, when humanity was still new to our Confederacy." She touched the holographic controls, and the display changed to show a distant star system. New Horizon, they called it. A small human colony world with little strategic value. But the Viridians attacked it without warning or provocation. The humans had only 1 warship close enough to respond. The hologram shifted again, showing a dark, asymmetrical vessel that seemed to absorb the light around it rather than reflect it. "UEA's Harbinger," Silura said quietly. "We expected nothing." The humans were newcomers, their technology unremarkable by our standards. 1 ship against a Viridian battle fleet. We prepared to welcome survivors after the inevitable defeat. She paused, her face grim with memory. There were survivors, but not the ones we expected. Commander Vrax, one of the younger officers, leaned forward. "What happened?" "The Harbinger destroyed the entire Viridian fleet," Silura replied. 72 capital ships, 29 support vessels, all gone. And when it was over, the human ships simply disappeared, returned to their space without explanation. Murmurs filled the chamber. Zarin's skin paled to a sickly yellow. "That's impossible," said Corvin. "No single ship cold." "I reviewed the battle records myself," Silura interrupted. "What that ship did shouldn't have been possible. The humans have technologies they don't share, weapons they don't discuss, and tactics." She shook her head. "They fight like nothing I've ever seen. If this ship is so powerful, why haven't we heard of it since?" asked a Tellurian representative. Silura's eyes narrowed. "There was another incident 5 cycles ago. Something happened at Cygnus Prime. The details were classified. But afterward, the humans withdrew the Harbinger from active service. Some say they were ashamed of what it had done." The council erupted in debate. Some argued they should request human assistance immediately. Others warned against involving a force they couldn't control. In the end, a vote was taken. By a narrow margin, the Confederacy decided to send an envoy to Earth. Captain Alina Reeves stood at the observation deck of her small cabin on the lunar base, looking out at Earth. The blue marble hung suspended against the black velvet of space, peaceful and serene. For a moment, she could almost forget the nightmares that had woken her before dawn. Dreams of fire and silence, and the cold void of space. The door chimed. Reeves didn't turn. "Come in." Admiral Zhang entered, her uniform crisp despite the early hour. She carried a data tablet and wore a look of determination that Reeves recognized all too well. "They're reactivating the Harbinger," Zhang said without preamble. Now Reeves did turn, her weathered face expressionless. "Why?" "The Viridians are on the move again. The Confederacy has formally requested our help." Reeves laughed, a short, harsh sound with no humor. "After Cygnus, I'm surprised they'd want us within 1,000 light-years of their precious worlds." "They're desperate," John replied, "and the Joint Chiefs have agreed. The Harbinger launches in 48 hours. Reeves turned back to the window. "Find someone else to command her." "There is no one else, Alina. You know that ship better than anyone alive. And despite what happened, despite the hearing and the forced retirement, you're still the best captain we have." Reeves closed her eyes, seeing not the peaceful earth, but the cold blackness of space, feeling not the comfortable gravity of the lunar base, but the phantom vibration of the Harbinger's engines beneath her feet. "She's been refitted," Zhang continued. "New systems, new protocols." She hesitated. "Some of your old crew have volunteered to return." "They're fools," then Reeves said quietly. "Maybe. Or maybe they believe in you, even after everything." Reeves was silent for a long moment. Finally, she turned to face the Admiral. "What are the terms?" "Full autonomy. The Confederacy gets your help, but you answer only to Earth Command. They don't get to know our capabilities, and they don't get to question your tactics." Reeves nodded slowly. "And afterward, when the Viridians are dealt with, the Harbinger returns to Earth space, and you with it." Reeves picked up a small model ship that sat on her desk, a perfect miniature of the Harbinger, black and sleek and terrible. She had carried it through 5 years of exile, a reminder of what she had done and what she might have to do again. "When do we leave?" she asked. Zhang handed her the data tablet. "Your reinstatement is already processed. Transport leaves for the orbital shipyard in 3 hours." As Zhang turned to go, Reeves spoke again. "Admiral, do they know? The Confederacy, do they know what they're asking for?" Zhang paused at the door. "I don't think anyone truly knows what the Harbinger is capable of, Alina. Not even us. That's what scares them. That's what scares all of us." After Zhang left, Reeves looked down at the tablet. Her new orders were clear. Take command of the UES Harbinger. Defend Confederate space against Viridian aggression. Return when the mission is complete. Simple words for what would be anything but a simple task. She packed quickly, taking only what she needed. As she took one last look at her home of 5 years, she realized she felt nothing. No sadness at leaving, no joy at returning to the stars. Only a cold certainty that the galaxy was about to remember why they had feared the name Harbinger, and why they had feared its captain even more. The orbital shipyard hung in space like a massive metal spider, its long arms cradling the dark shape of the UES Harbinger. As the shuttle approached, Reeves pressed her hand against the viewport, her eyes fixed on the warship that had once been her home. The Harbinger was unlike any other ship in Earth's fleet, where most human vessels followed the same design principles as their alien counterparts: sleek, rounded hulls with a certain aesthetic appeal. The Harbinger rejected beauty for pure function. Its angular, asymmetric form was covered in weapon mounts and sensor arrays. The hull was coated with a material that absorbed rather than reflected light, making it appear as a ship-shaped hole against the stars. "She doesn't look 5 years older," Reeves said quietly. The shuttle pilot nodded. "They've kept her ready, Captain. Like they knew someday they'd need her again." The shuttle docked with the shipyard, and Reeves made her way through the familiar corridors. Personnel stepped aside as she passed, their faces showing a mix of respect and unease. Her reputation had only grown during her absence, it seemed. At the main airlock to the Harbinger, a familiar figure waited. Commander Naomi Chen straightened to attention as Reeves approached. 5 years had added some gray to Chen's hair, but the sharp intelligence in her eyes hadn't changed. "Captain," Chen said, offering a crisp salute. "Welcome back." Reeves returned the salute. "XO, I didn't expect to see you here. Where else would I be?" When they said they were reactivating the Harbinger, I requested immediate transfer. Chen's expression softened slightly. Most of the old bridge crew did the same. Rodriguez, Kim, Takahashi. They're all aboard. Reeves felt something stir inside her, the first real emotion she'd experienced since receiving her new orders. After Cygnus, after what happened, I'm surprised anyone would want to serve with me again. Chen met her gaze steadily. "What happened at Cygnus wasn't your fault, Captain. Those of us who were there know that." Reeves didn't respond. Instead, she gestured toward the airlock. "Let's see what they've done to my ship." Fire of Redemption. The interior of the Harbinger was both familiar and strange. The basic layout remained the same, but Reeves could see evidence of the refit that Admiral Zhang had mentioned. New control panels, updated systems, modifications to the weapon stations. As they walked through the ship, crew members stopped to acknowledge their captain's return. Some were veterans who had served on the Harbinger before, their eyes showing recognition and respect. Others were new, young faces that regarded Reeves with barely concealed awe. "They've been telling stories about you," Chen said, noticing Reeves' reaction to the younger crew members. "About us. About what the Harbinger did at New Horizon. Stories get bigger with each telling. Especially the scary ones," Reeves replied. They reached the engine room, where Chief Engineer Rashid was bent over a console, arguing with a technician from the shipyard. Rashid was a compact woman with a perpetual scowl and hands that were always in motion. When she saw Reeves, her face split into a rare smile. "Captain, about time you showed up." She waved dismissively at the technician. "Tell your supervisor I'll sign off on the changes when I'm good and ready, not before." As the technician left, grumbling, Rashid turned back to Reeves and Chen. "They'd been trying to improve my engines for weeks. Idiots wouldn't know a phase inverter from a plasma regulator." Reeves smiled slightly. "Some things never change." "What have they done to my ship, Chief?" Rashid's expression turned serious. "A lot, Captain. Some good, some." She glanced around and lowered her voice. "Some changes I don't agree with. Come see." She led them deeper into the engine room, to a sealed door marked with high security warnings. Rashid entered a code, and the door slid open to reveal a large chamber dominated by a device Reeves didn't recognize, a complex arrangement of curved metal and pulsing energy fields. "What am I looking at, Chief?" Reeves asked. "They're calling it the Phoenix Core," Rashid replied. "It's what they've been working on for the past 3 years. The reason they kept the Harbinger in reserve instead of stripping her for parts." Chen stepped closer to the device, her face reflected in its polished surfaces. "It's supposed to replace the Ghost Drive." Rashid nodded. "The Ghost Drive let us go invisible to sensors. This thing," she shook her head, "they say it can do a lot more, but it's experimental. Dangerous." Reeves studied the device, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. They wouldn't install it without a reason. "The Viridians," Chen said. "They must be expecting one hell of a fight." Rashid grunted in agreement. "The techs won't tell me how it works. Say it's beyond my clearance." Her voice bristled with indignation. "On my own damn ship." Reeves placed a hand on the engineer's shoulder. "It's still your engine room, Chief. I want you to learn everything you can about this new core. If we're going to use it, I want to know exactly what it does." On the bridge of the Harbinger, Reeves stood before the main view screen, watching as the last of the shipyard's maintenance arms withdrew from the hull. The ship was now free, connected to the station only by docking clamps. Around her, the bridge crew worked at their stations, their movements becoming more confident as they reacquainted themselves with the ship's systems. Chen stood at Reeves' side, reviewing the final departure checklist. "All stations report ready, Captain," she said. "Pre-launch diagnostics complete. The Confederate observers are aboard and settled in their quarters." Reeves nodded. "Notify Earth Command that we're prepared for departure." As Chen relayed the message, Reeves' mind drifted back to her last day on this bridge. 5 years ago, the chaos, the alarms, the desperate gamble that had saved lives but ended her career. Would it be different this time? Or was the Harbinger destined to remain what it had always been, a weapon of last resort, too powerful, too dangerous to use except in the most desperate circumstances? The communications officer looked up from her station. "Earth Command confirms launch clearance, Captain. We are ordered to proceed to the rendezvous coordinates at best speed." Reeves turned to face her crew, feeling the weight of 40 pairs of eyes upon her. They were waiting for words, for inspiration, for reassurance. She had never been good at speeches. "Most of you know what we're facing," she said simply. "The Viridians aren't just raiders or pirates. They're conquerors. They've already destroyed 3 Confederate outposts, and they won't stop there." She looked around the bridge, meeting each gaze in turn. "We faced them before. Some of you were with me at New Horizon. Others have only heard the stories. Today, we all find out how much of those stories is true." She turned back to the view screen, where the vast blackness of space waited. "Release docking clamps. Take us out, helm. 1/4 power until we clear the solar system. Then prepare the jump drive." As the Harbinger pulled away from the shipyard, Reeves felt the subtle vibration of the engines through the deck plates. The ship seemed to come alive around her, responding to her commands, as if it had been waiting for her return. Somewhere out there, the Viridian fleet was advancing toward its next target, unaware that the Harbinger had been unleashed once more, unaware that their worst nightmare was coming for them. "Captain," Chen said quietly, so only Reeves could hear. "The crew is wondering. Will we use it? The Phoenix Core." Reeves watched as the stars streaked past on the view screen. "Let's hope we don't have to. XO, for everyone's sake." But deep inside, in a place she rarely acknowledged, Reeves knew better. A Harbinger hadn't been reactivated, hadn't been fitted with experimental technology, just to frighten the enemy. This time, like the last, they would be asked to do the unthinkable. And this time, like the last, they would not refuse. The Harbinger dropped out of jump space with barely a shudder, a testament to Rashid's skill with the engines. On the main screen, the Confederate fleet came into view, a collection of ships from a dozen different worlds gathered to face the Viridian threat. 53 vessels reported, Lieutenant Kim said from the sensor station, mostly light cruisers and support ships, only 6 heavy capital ships. Reeves studied the fleet. Even from a distance, she could see the differences in design and technology, a reflection of the various species that made up the Confederacy. Some were streamlined and elegant, built more for speed than combat. Others bristled with weapons but lacked the advanced shielding that would keep them alive in a prolonged engagement. "Not much of a defense force," Chen observed quietly. Reeves nodded. "They've been at peace too long. Forgotten what real war looks like." "Incoming transmission from the Confederate flagship, Captain," called the communications officer. "On screen," Reeves ordered. The view screen shifted to show the face of Admiral Kethran, the Confederate fleet commander. Kethran was from a reptilian species, with scaled skin and vertical pupils that gave him a perpetually suspicious look. "Captain Reeves," he said, his translator rendering his words with only a slight delay. "Your arrival is timely. We had begun to fear Earth had reconsidered its commitment." "The Harbinger was in reserve," Reeves replied. "It took time to make her ready." Kethran's eyes narrowed slightly. "Yes, I've heard this ship has been inactive since the sickness incident. I trust that will not affect your performance in the coming battle." Chen stiffened beside Reeves, but the captain's expression remained neutral. "The Harbinger is fully operational, Admiral. My crew is ready. We await your orders. Excellent, Catherine said, though his tone suggested he was far from convinced. We're holding a strategy session in 2 hours. I expect you and your senior officers to attend. The transmission ended, and Chen let out a breath. Friendly sort, isn't he? He's scared, Reeves said. They all are. Not just of the Viridians. Reeves' eyes remained on the screen where the Confederate fleet hung against the backdrop of stars. Of what we might do. Of what we've done before. The battle came sooner than expected. The Viridians, perhaps sensing the arrival of the Harbinger, accelerated their advance. They struck not at the Nexus hub as predicted, but at the Confederate fleet directly, emerging from jump space in a massive formation that dwarfed the defenders. On the Harbinger's bridge, alarm sounded as the sensor officer reported the enemy's approach. Viridian fleet emerging from multiple jump points. I count 87 vessels, Captain. 22 capital ships. Catherine's face appeared on the view screen, his scaled features tense. All ships, defensive formation Theta. Prepare to engage the enemy. Reeves watched as the Confederate ships scrambled to form a defensive line. It was too little, too late. The Viridians had caught them by surprise, and the formation was ragged, full of gaps. They're going to be slaughtered, Chen murmured. Reeves nodded. She had seen this before. The Viridians' preferred tactic. Strike hard, strike fast, overwhelm the enemy before they could organize an effective defense. Captain, Kim called from the sensor station. I'm detecting targeting systems locking onto Confederate vessels. They're concentrating fire on the command ships. Reeves made her decision. Helm, bring us to attack vector 117. All weapon systems online. Shield generators to maximum. Sir, the tactical officer protested. Admiral Catherine ordered us to maintain position in the defensive line. I'm aware of the Admiral's orders, Lieutenant, Reeves replied, her voice cold. But this is my ship, and I will not stand by and watch another massacre. She opened a channel to the engine room. Chief Rashid, status of the Phoenix Corps. Online but untested, Captain, came the reply. I still don't know what it will do at full power. We're about to find out. Stand by. Reeves addressed the bridge crew. The Viridians expect us to play defense, to react to their moves. We're going to show them something different. She pointed to a specific vessel in the enemy formation. That one, their command ship. That's our target. A Harbinger broke from the Confederate line, its engines flaring as it accelerated toward the heart of the Viridian fleet. On the Confederate flagship, Admiral Catherine's face contorted in anger. Captain Reeves, what are you doing? Return to formation immediately. With respect, Admiral, we have a better chance attacking than defending. The Harbinger was built for this. Before Catherine could respond, the Viridians opened fire. Energy beams lanced across space, striking Confederate ships. 2 smaller vessels erupted in flames, their hulls breached. The Harbinger plunged forward, its advanced shields deflecting the enemy fire. As they closed on the Viridian command ship, Reeves felt a familiar calm settle over her. The calm that came in battle, when choices were simplified to survival or defeat. Target their forward shield generators, she ordered. Firing solution. Locked, Captain, the tactical officer replied. Fire. The Harbinger's main weapons discharge, a brilliant beam of concentrated energy that struck the Viridian flagship with pinpoint accuracy. The enemy shields flared, then collapsed under the assault. Direct hit, Kim reported. Their forward shields are down. Again, Reeves ordered. Target their bridge section. The Viridians reacted quickly, surrounding their flagship with escort vessels. Enemy fire intensified, hammering at the Harbinger's shields. Shields at 62% and dropping, reported the defensive systems officer. We can't take much more of this, Captain. Reeves turned to Chen. It's time. Chen nodded, understanding immediately. All hands, brace for Phoenix Corps activation. Reeves opened a channel to engineering. Chief, activate the Phoenix Corps. Full power. There was a moment's hesitation before Rashid responded. "Aye, Captain. May whatever gods you believe in protect us all." A deep thrumming sound filled the ship, rising in pitch and intensity until it seemed to vibrate through every molecule of the Harbinger structure. On the main screen, the space around the ship began to distort, light bending in impossible ways. "What's happening?" Chen asked, her voice barely audible over the growing resonance. Before Reeves could answer, the Phoenix core reached full activation. A wave of energy erupted from the Harbinger, spreading outward in all directions. Where it touched Viridian ships, their systems failed. Weapons, engines, life support, all shutting down simultaneously. The Viridian fleet, moments ago on the verge of victory, drifted powerless in space. "By the stars," Kim whispered. "It's an electromagnetic pulse weapon, but on a scale I'd never seen." "Not just EMP," Reeves said, watching as the enemy ships floated helplessly before them. "Something more. The wave pattern is complex, specifically tuned to Viridian technology. Our ships and the Confederate vessels are unaffected." The communications officer turned from her station. "Captain, we're receiving surrender signals from multiple Viridian vessels." Reeves nodded slowly. "Inform Admiral Kethran that the enemy fleet is neutralized. Request instructions regarding prisoners of war." As the bridge crew went about their duties, Chen moved closer to Reeves. "The Phoenix Corps," she said quietly. "This is what happened at Cygnus, isn't it? The experimental version." Reeves' face was grim. "At Cygnus, we couldn't control it. The pulse was too strong, too wide. It affected everything in the system, including the civilian transports," Chen finished. "The ones caught in the crossfire." Reeves nodded. 2,000 lives. "They called it a necessary sacrifice. Said I made the right call." She looked out at the disabled Viridian fleet. "Maybe today we've balanced the scales. A little." On the view screen, Admiral Kethran appeared, his expression a mixture of awe and fear. "Captain Reeves," he said, his voice subdued. "It seems the stories about the Harbinger were not exaggerations after all." "No, Admiral," Reeves replied. "Sometimes the truth is more frightening than any story." As the Confederate fleet moved to secure the disabled Viridian vessels, Reeves stood on the bridge of the Harbinger, feeling the weight of command, of power, of fear. Today they were heroes. Tomorrow, perhaps, they would be monsters again. But today, at least, the galaxy would remember that humanity, for all its flaws, for all its dangerous potential, was a force to be reckoned with. Not because humans were stronger or more advanced, but because when pushed to the edge, they were willing to do what others could not, even if it meant becoming the thing that terrified the entire galaxy.